Coming up on this Tuesday edition of NEWSLINE at noon, rival parties and the families of the victims of April's ferry disaster narrow their differences over a special probe into the sinking. There's hope this could mark the end of a months-long parliamentary impasse. Rebounding retail sales and growing business optimism are boding well for the Korean economy, but manufacturing activity is still struggling to recover. Plus, tens of thousands of pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong bed down for a prolonged sit-in. The US and Britain say their right to peaceful protest should be respected. These stories and more on NEWSLINE at noon.
It's noon Tuesday, September 30th here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in live from Seoul. I'm Eoh Jin-joo.
It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this afternoon, three-way talks, closed-door three-way talks between rival party floor leaders and the families of those who died in April's ferry disaster are ongoing as we speak.
Now, the hope is that they will be able to come up with a solution to the impasse that has led to a months-long parliamentary gridlock.
For the latest on this, we connect to our National Assembly correspondent, Ji Myung-gil, on the line. Myung-gil, fill us in on the latest, please.
Right, Mark. Just a few minutes ago, the representatives of the victims' families left the National Assembly. And as they were leaving, they said they had given the authority to the main opposition party's full leader to negotiate with their ruling party counterparts. Full leader for the ruling Assembly Party, Eoh Jin-joo, full leader for the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, Park Young-sun, and representatives of the bereaved families focused on renewing talks over the Seoul ferry bill. It's believed that the victims' families this morning proposed a revised version of the bill and that the bill is currently under discussion. Their request, from what we're hearing, is that when a state prosecutor is picked to head the fact-finding committee in charge of investigating the ferry disaster, the bereaved families want a say in who that person will be. Originally, the families had asked that the fact-finding committee be given prosecutorial powers, but it seems they've now backed from the request. Now, even if opposition parties agree, it remains to be seen whether the ruling party will. They have said previously they would not accept any further negotiations related to the Seoul ferry bill, and that they plan to resume parliamentary affairs regardless of whether the opposition party is taking part.
And Myung-gil, while we're speaking about parliamentary normalisation, in just about 2 hours' time, a plenary session will open at the National Assembly. The opposition has been boycotting Parliament, as you just mentioned. Will they be in attendance at today's full session?
Well, that remains to be seen. A lot may depend on what comes out of these meetings this morning. The ruling Assembly Party and the Assembly Speaker have said they will go ahead and pass some 90 draft bills today, whether the opposition is there or not. Remember that not a single bill has been passed by the Assembly over the past 150 days. The Assembly Party was prepared to pass the pending bills at last week's plenary session, but it was adjourned shortly after opening after opposition lawmakers asked that it be rescheduled. They wanted to take the weekend to gather opinions from party members and straighten out their stance. On top of the dozens of bills that remain pending, the rival parties have a number of other issues to iron out, including the dates for annual parliamentary audits of the government, passing next year's budget bill, and reviewing thousands of other bills. I will be back throughout the day with updates. This is Myung-gil reporting live from the National Assembly.
And moving on, a ferry ran aground in waters off Korea's southwestern island earlier this Tuesday morning, but all 109 people aboard the ship were rescued safely.
Yes, the Vacances ferry was carrying 104 passengers and 5 crew members when it struck a rock in waters near Hongdo Island, Jeollanam-do province at around 9 a.m. Korea time. That's about 3 hours ago. The Coast Guard said everyone was evacuated from the ferry in 20 minutes and that they have been taken to a port on the island.
The United States has declined to comment on rumors of a military coup in North Korea. Speaking to reporters following Monday's press briefing, State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki said she has seen the reports but could neither confirm nor deny them. It's been nearly a month since North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has been seen in public, spurring wild rumors about his whereabouts and well-being. One of them is that Kim has been arrested following a military coup. Another is that the young leader has been hospitalized after undergoing surgery on his leg. Now, recent video footage released by the North showed the young leader walking with a limp. And a new report shows that political instability in North Korea worsened in the year 2013. The World Bank's latest edition of its Worldwide Governance Indicator says North Korea is among the nations in worse shape when it comes to political stability and absence of violence. The index saw a significant drop for the first time since 2010. Although the paper didn't specify the reasons behind the poor grade, watchers say political variables such as the execution of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's uncle Jang Sung-taek contributed to the fall. The World Bank releases its governance index every year based on some 40 data sources from dozens of global organizations. Korea's top judge has proposed setting up a human rights court here in Asia. Constitutional Court Chief Justice Park Han-cheol explained his vision to hundreds of judges from around the world that have gathered in Seoul for a conference on social integration. Kim Min-ji has the details.
Around 350 people from some 100 countries have gathered in Seoul to attend the Congress of the World Conference on Constitutional Justice. Hosted by the Constitutional Court of Korea, the event is being held under the theme Constitutional Justice and Social Integration.
We need to pursue international standards and ensure universal human rights. We also need to think about the effects that ruling may have on international relations.
In a keynote address, Chief Justice Park Han-cheol proposed the establishment of a special court in Asia that would deal with human rights issues. Indirectly referring to Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of women, he stressed the need for a regional court, saying that Asia had bore witness to human rights violation during times of war and that their sufferings continue to this day. Park noted the European Court of Human Rights as a potential model. He said the court brought integration and regional peace to the European Union. The court, which is comprised of 47 member states, was set up in 1959 by the European Convention on Human Rights. Park said when the Asian court is set up, it will bring about regional integration and give people more dignity. The 4-day conference will end on Wednesday with participants adopting a Seoul communique on the issues they discussed. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, the South Korean government's recent expansionary policies and encouraging indicators overseas have had a positive effect on the sentiment of Korean businesses. New data reflects that more companies feel like the domestic economy is back on the track towards a full recovery. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
More companies are feeling positive about the Korean economy, largely due to the government's expansionary policies and signs of recovery in the United States. A survey of 600 companies by the Federation of Korean Industries shows that the Business Survey Index for October exceeded the 100 mark for the first time in 5 months. A figure over 100 means that the optimists outnumber pessimists over economic conditions. The positive sentiment was also shared in the manufacturing sector. The Bank of Korea says its Business Survey Index of manufacturing companies edged up to 74 in September. That's 2 points higher than the previous month, when the level was its lowest in 13 months. However, there were mixed results when taking into account the country's industrial output. In August, it dropped by 0.6% from the previous month, switching to negative growth for the first time in 3 months. Statistics Korea attributes this to the drop in the number of working days due to a growing number of labor strikes in the automobile sector, and adds that it's too early to say that the Korean economy is on a steady path to recovery. The Federation of Korean Industries points to hurdles, namely the strengthening of the Korean won against the weakening of the Japanese yen, sluggish private consumption, and a slump in exports to China. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, the summer of 2014 was one to remember for Korea's tourism sector. New figures from the Bank of Korea and the Korea Culture and Tourism Institute show that tourism revenue hit more than $1.5 billion last month. That's up 50% on year and the second highest monthly total ever, following only July of this year. The record numbers coincide with a record number of Chinese tourists coming to Korea. 4 million Chinese visited the country in the January to August period, up nearly 40% on year. In August, Chinese tourists made up more than half of all foreign visitors to Korea.
The largely student-led sit-in in Hong Kong continues as pro-democracy demonstrators block major parts of the city into the early morning hours of this Tuesday.
For more details and a look through some of the other global headlines we're following on this Tuesday, we connect to our Eunice Kim, who joins us in the news centre. So, Eunice, demonstrators there are not budging. They are demanding universal suffrage.
That's right, Mark, and it looks like much of the city will be shut down today as well, with schools in central, Wan Chai and western districts remaining closed, as will be the case for many of those businesses surrounding the main government complex, where thousands of people are still amassed. Our Connie Kim has this story.
Civil unrest in Hong Kong is continuing as thousands of pro-democracy protesters occupy the city's major streets after defying the authorities' call to go home. Demonstrators covered up in masks, goggles and raincoats in case of another police crackdown similar to the one that occurred on Monday when officers fired pepper spray and tear gas at the protesters. Schools and businesses around the government complex remain closed as thousands block the commercial district of Causeway Bay to Central's east and across the harbor to Kowloon's Mongkok. Over 50 people have been injured since the protests flared up on Saturday. Demonstrators are demanding universal suffrage in Hong Kong's 2017 elections and that Beijing abandon its plan to vet candidates for the post of chief executive.
We have a simple message, is that we just want a democracy and a fair voting of choosing our chief executive of Hong Kong.
Up until now, Beijing had been nominating the chief executive, and China was quick to warn other nations against supporting what it calls illegal rallies.
We hope that related nations show a considerate stance regarding the protest in Hong Kong and do not send out a wrong message to protesters.
However, the U.S. and Britain have both said the demonstrators' rights should be protected and the people of Hong Kong should be granted universal suffrage. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And turning next to the Syrian-Turkey border, where residents of the Syrian city of Kobani say they are terrified as Islamic State militants continue to make gains toward them. The London-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the jihadist group was as close as 3 kilometers away from the mostly Kurdish city. If they are successful, IS would gain a full stretch of land from the Turkish border to the group's declared capital of Raqqa, some 100 kilometers away. Eyewitnesses said the coalition airstrikes were too few and too far back from the front lines. This as a U.S. think tank analysis released an estimate on Monday saying that American military efforts against IS could cost between $2.4 billion and $22 billion per year. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates has once again topped Forbes magazine's rich list with an estimated net worth of some $81 billion. That makes this the 21st consecutive year that the philanthropist has come in first in the Forbes 400 richest people in America list. Forbes said Gates added $9 billion to his net worth this past year, in part thanks to a rise in value of his Microsoft shares as well as his other investments. The American Business magazine also praised the 58-year-old for his humanitarian work. Earlier this month, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation had pledged $50 million to fight the Ebola epidemic in West Africa, the single largest donation the foundation has committed to a cause.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea. connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on NEWSLINE at Noon with Mark Broome and Eoh Jin-joo.
I'm Eoh Jin-joo.
Market researcher, strategy analytics, said Thursday that LG Electronics brought in about 11.
The eruption of Mount Ontake in Japan is a not-so-subtle reminder that the island nation is teeming with potentially deadly volcanoes. One never knows when another eruption may come, and there are growing concerns that the country's biggest mountain, Mount Fuji, may be ready to blow for the first time in hundreds of years. Sun Jung-in tells us more.
Mount Fuji is the highest point on the Japanese archipelago, rising 700 meters taller than Mount Ontake. Located not far from major cities like Tokyo and Yokohama, the mountain has recently been showing some signs that an eruption may be coming, including sinking roads and receding lake waters in the area. Mount Fuji has discharged lava at least 43 times in the past 2,000 years. It erupts on average every 50 years, but has stayed ominously silent for the last 300. A recent research found that the 9.0 magnitude earthquake in Japan's east in 2011 increased the pressure beneath the volcanic mountain. If Mountain Fuji were to erupt, experts warn of extensive damage. It could spell disaster for Shizuoka Prefecture, with more than 750,000 residents left homeless. The harmful ash discharge could also damage the health of 12 million people residing in Tokyo and other metropolitan areas within the volcano's reach. Another problem lies in the evacuation system, or lack thereof. According to a government study, 80% of areas threatened by the effects of a volcanic eruption have no viable evacuation plan. With thousands of hikers visiting Mount Fuji every day, concerns are rising that Japan should start preparing now before it's too late. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Some foreign manufacturers are gearing up to take on Samsung Electronics in its very own backyard, right here in Korea's lucrative smartphone market. Now, one of them is China's Huawei, which is hoping to make an impression with Korean consumers with its low-cost devices. Hwang Jie has the details.
Those in Korea trying to buy a new smartphone now have one more option. That is the X3 model from Chinese budget smartphone manufacturer Huawei Technologies, which hit local shelves on Tuesday. Huawei expects to lure Korean consumers with its affordably priced handsets, which are up to $400 cheaper than local brands like Samsung Electronics. Korea's smartphone market is considered difficult to break into, with most citizens loyal to Samsung and its domestic rival. Currently, the Korean tech giant controls around 60% of the local market, followed by LG Electronics. Apple, one of the world's most popular smartphone makers, holds below 10% of the local share. It's no surprise then that US-based Motorola gave up on the Korean market in 2012, while Taiwan's HTC also folded its Korean business in the same year. But it's not just Huawei that's aiming to take on the Korean smartphone market. Sony of Japan recently unveiled its high-end Xperia Z3 smartphone, which also boasts a cheaper price tag compared to local brands, pointing to even stiffer competition among local and foreign players. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
It's the last day of September, and that means the Inter-Nation Games are starting to draw to a close, but that's not to say there isn't plenty more action left, though.
Yeah, there are 4 days of competition left, and some huge events still have to be settled. And we've been seeing some inter-Korean matches over the last day or so, including the women's football semi-final last night between South Korea and North Korea. For all the details on this match and all the other developments, we have, as always, our Song Ji-sun with us in the studio. Hi, Ji-sun.
Well, good afternoon, guys. As you know, South Korea is very strong in sports, almost second after China in Asia, but North Korea is stronger than South in terms of women's football, and that reflected on the result of the women's football semifinals yesterday, with scoreboard at 2-1, with North Korea taking the victory. And South Korea's Jung So-bin actually scored the opener from a free kick in the 12th minute. But North Korea's Ri Jung-shin brought the team's level in the 36th minute with a neat equalizer. The South had plenty of chances to retake the lead throughout the rest of the match, but Ji So-yeon's strike bounced off the crossbar just minutes before the final whistle. And just as the match looked like it was going into overtime, a shot by North Korea's Ho Eun-byeol hit the back of the net with seconds left on the clock. Currently ranked 11th in the FIFA rankings, North Korean women's team has knocked out South Korea at every Asian Games since 1990. Now ranked 17th in the FIFA rankings, South Korea will now face Vietnam in the bronze medal match at 5 p.m. Korea time tomorrow. The gold medal match between North Korea and Japan kicks off after that at 8 p.m. on Wednesday night.
And staying with the North Korean squad, I hear that the South Korean government and the organizing committee of the Incheon Asian Games will be covering some of the expenses North Korea spent during involved in this games.
Right, this just released this morning, and as in the previous sporting events held right here in the South Korea, Seoul has yet again decided to put a large portion of Pyongyang's bill in this year's Asian Games as well. The officials say the South Korean government will pay up to $1 million to the organizing committee for Pyongyang's bill. Now, North Korea has yet to pay multiple fees like accommodation costs for staying at the athletes' village and for sending the footages to show the events in the north through broadcasting. Before the start of the Incheon Games, Pyongyang decided not to send a group of cheerleaders to the south because of a disagreement over who would settle the bill. North Korea had reportedly asked Seoul to pay the vast majority of the fees for the cheering squad. Now, it is common practice for each participating country to pay their own expenses when taking part in international sporting events. But the Incheon 2014 Organizing Committee requested the South Korean government take care of the North bill. The government says it will transfer money to the committee after North indicates how much they're willing to contribute.
Well, yeah, it's nice to see that the South Korean government is going to help cover a little bit of the North Korean bill for the Games. Let's get back to the sports, the real interesting part of the Asian Games, of course. And South Korea's men's football team is still in a chance for a gold medal.
Right, although the women's team has failed to reach the finals, the South Korean men's squad has a chance, and if they do win the gold for the first time in 28 years after the 1986 Asian Games held here at home in Seoul. Now that match, well, the two Koreas will play each other for gold if they win. If the two Koreas will actually play each other for the gold if they do win the semifinals match tonight. North Korea plays Iraq at 5 p.m., while the South will kick off against Thailand at 8 p.m. and the final set for Thursday at 8 p.m. And moving on to medal events in contact and action sports for tonight. 4 medal events are set for wrestling, which is men's Greco-Roman, and Taekwondo finally kicked off its competition with the rounds of 32 this morning. We got 4 gold medal matches, 2 for men and 2 for women. Now, usually, the organizing committee usually sets the most exciting and anticipated events and the finals for the last days of the events. So you should also stay tuned to the last days, which will only have 3 or 4, but stay tuned for more actions in the Asian Games.
So the excitement will last until the last day, Friday, I believe. Thank you, Jason, for your coverage today.
Yes. And why don't we take a look at the medal standings for the countries as of about 1 hour ago on this day 11 of the Incheon Asian Games.
The morning fog is burning off and skies are turning to mostly to partly sunny with highs slightly warmer than yesterday. So let's take a closer look at today's numbers. Now the high in Seoul and Daegu will rise to 23, while Gwangju and Busan will peak at 27 and 24 respectively. Now for other regions, down on Jeju Island and Daejeon will peak at 24, while Dokdo and Mount Keungang rises to 17 and 8. Now, Incheon, the host city of Asian Games, will have a typical autumn day today as well, under mostly to partly sunny skies. So the weather should cooperate for the soccer match that Korea has against Thailand. But if you plan to watch it at the stadium, be sure to dress warmly. And it seems like the mid to low 20s will be the average top temperature here in Seoul this week. And we do have rain in the forecast on Thursday, and also do notice the chillier morning lows. So I guess it's time for us to put away our light clothes and take out some heavy ones. That's all I have for you at this hour, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
And that does it for now. Thank you for watching.
Yes, Jin-joo and I will be back at the same time on Wednesday. Until then, goodbye.